I almost forgot to grab my mic. Good evening. Hello. Happy book club. Mom orc, dad orc, child orc walk into a restaurant. A human and elf child playing in a pen in the corner. Little orc runs to the pen and plays with him. Mom orc says, "Stop playing with your food." Typical orc behavior. Stop playing with your food. There are jokes. Let me grab them. Oh, shoot. Typed that wrong. Hail comers from afar. Hi, Jess. Hi, Gary. Hi, Andrew. Hi, Pedro. Hi, Toodles. Hello, book club. Hello, hello. All right, let's read some jokes. Okay. I know there's some people put it on the video from last week, but I'm only going to read the ones. Oh my God, my tea is so hot. Only going to read the ones from the community section. There's 5. Okay. An orc walks into a restaurant and the waiter asks, "May I take your Mordor?" That's a good one, Zach. An orc walks into a restaurant and asks, "Girl, what's the Saruman special snarl?" The elf waiter replies, "Long bottom leaf smoked worm tongue." Unfortunately, the orc never learned the price as the elf lay down on the floor. Wait, what happened to the elf? Did the orc kill the elf? That one went over my head. Okay. An orc walks into a restaurant. Everyone stops what they're doing and looks. There are some huffs, some snorts, and dirty looks. The waitress walks over and says, "Sir, you don't belong here," to which he agrees and leaves. Wow, what a bunch of judgmental pigs, he muttered as he left. He took one last look at the sign and realized his mistake. This place was called Just Oinks. Hey, Jeremy said, "Nah, I don't really know what an orc is, to be honest. Just that it's some sort of troll thing from something. Never mind, forget." No, I liked it. I liked it. Okay. Hello. Hi. Hi, hi, hi. Welcome to book club. Yes. Okay. We are doing chapters 5 and 6 today of Two Towers, book 3. Which again, kind of confusing. And then I have, let me put this in here too, because I have scheduled next week's live. So let me share that here as well. Oh boy, Wild. Oh boy. I liked Wild. I appreciated in your post today where you were like, where is it? Oh, it's this. I predict that these are 2 of your favorite chapters. Yes, I actually wanted to look. I'm reading the beginning of your thing right now. We did get a really good glimpse into Rohan. I want to see if in the appendix, if there's anything we can read about I know we can read about men, but I wonder within there there's anything specific. Dude, my upstairs neighbors are being so loud tonight. I swear they continue to wear their heels inside for eternity. Oh man. No. If you want to wear your heels all night and you're an upstairs neighbor, might I suggest you invest in carpet? Otherwise, you're just a dick, dude. It's so, the other night they were wearing heels at like 2:30 a.m. walking around. I was like, look, I know that you're adults up there. So if you can hear some clomping around, that's where it's coming from. Man, yeah. I mean, we could, there's the section on men, but, oh, there's a House of Earl. Well, it's kind of a long section. Okay, I want to start bringing in the appendix more. It really is such a rich, were you wrong though? You know you weren't wrong. You know that you were not wrong. Oh, wow. There are family trees in here. Well, that's so cool. There's only, well, there's not an elf one. There's the Baggins of Hobbiton, the Boffin of the Yale. Oh, Merry and Pip. The Brandybuck of Buckland. Oh, cute. There's a calendar. Sorry. I was like, let me just see if there's anything to read about the Rohanians in here. The House of Earl is relevant to Rohan. It's quite a long, yeah, it's quite a long section. I'll do some more investigating of that in my own time and bring forth like more pertinent things versus just boring you all with my reading. Thank you for being here though. Greetings, Art. Greetings. Okay, so overview of the chapters. We have chapter 5 and 6, right? So we have the White Rider and the King of the Golden Hall. Those are the two chapters we're talking about today. So the two big arcs are that we pick back up with Gimli, Aragorn, and Legolas, and we are tracing the steps of the hobbits, and we find, we'll get into it, but overarching, who do we find along the way? But none other than Gandalf, but not Gandalf the Grey, Gandalf the White, thus being the White Rider. We share stories, we catch up, we learn a thing or two about both sides of the equation, and then we make our way to Rohan. And then in Rohan, it's interesting because Rohan is actually quite a dramatic moment in our story, wouldn't you say? And all that in 20 pages we do a lot of work, and then we decide we're going off to war we go. So let's get into it. I might just put some music on for myself and listen. I don't normally do this, but I feel like I can't focus with how much you're stomping up there, and then also I feel like I'm hearing too much of my own voice. Okay, cool. Perfect. There's definitely a shift in tone and direction when we go to, yes. Yeah, well, because our first chapter starts off, well, it was interesting because the first, couple paragraphs, hold on, I'm going to need something less dramatic. Let me just get some, there we go. I was a little worried when I started reading chapter 5 because I thought for a second it was going to take us through everything Merry and Pip did. And I was like, and I questioned it for a minute. I was like, we don't need the story told this way. right? Like I was like, we don't, for a moment, and I take it back. Well, I understood why I was in there in the end. Because when I first started reading it, I was like, we just simply don't need for Aragorn and like to learn how Aragorn and Legolas tracked the hobbits step by step, right? Because I was really worried that was what was going to happen. And obviously that's not what happened. We only got like 2.5 pages of that or something in my book. So all was fine. But for the first little bit of it, it's like telling us information we already know, which, and again, I think sometimes when you read a book or a series of books that are so long, you have to question, was this part of it necessary? And I think that there have been times when I'm like, maybe not. Like some of the past like travel passages in Fellowship of the Ring, I thought were longer than they needed to be. Now, do I still feel that the beginning of the 5th chapter is unnecessary having finished it? No, because I think what it was doing was obviously it was putting us back with our three, Gimli, Aragorn, and Legolas, and getting us to a point where we could bring Gandalf in a more seamless way. So that obviously is what happened, and I think that played into it. So all in all, we get a little retrace of steps, and of course we already know where the hobbits are, so you're just like, okay, get to them, find them. That's how I felt while reading it. And we do find out there is something about the horses that we find out that's important, because we're talking about the horses. We start looking for signs of where everyone went, right? Kelly, no worries. The hill steps are getting closer. Yes. So we start looking for signs of where the hobbits went, and we also make note that we want to find signs of the old man we saw, which, if you remember from a few chapters ago, at the end of it, while the three were going to sleep, or in the middle of the night, they see an old man in white who we believe to be Saruman. And Aragorn says here, I don't expect to find any traces. It was an evil phantom of Saruman that we saw last night. But also in the same breath, we lost the 2 horses that the Rohanians had given us. It's not Rohirrimans. I'm going to call them Rohanians. Because I can never remember their official longer term. Hopefully it'll stick in my brain eventually. But you'll know what I mean when I say Rohanians. So we'd also lost the 2 horses, right? They had gone away. And we're trying to solve this riddle of who was the man? Where are the hobbits? What happened to the horses? So we think, oh, maybe they were running from Saruman. And Aragorn's like, well, it was likely enough, yet I'm not sure. I'm thinking of the horses. You said last night, Gimli, that they were scared away, but I did not think so. Did you hear them, Legolas? Did they sound to you like beasts in terror? No, I heard them clearly, but for the darkness and our own fear, I should have guessed that they were wild with some sudden gladness. They spoke as horses will when they meet a friend that they have long missed. So we get this little cast of doubt. Maybe it's not Saruman. Rohirrim. Thank you. I'll probably forget it again, but Rohirrim. I'm trying. The Rohirrims. So we decide, like, okay, we can't go looking for the horses. We can't waste time trying to find traces of this mysterious man. We have to go find the hobbits. That's our errand, whatever we may think of our visitor in the night. Which they always do a really good job of, like, it was Aragorn who said that. Aragorn specifically does a really good job of, like, getting everyone back on task, right? Which I've always appreciated. So they finally do find news. And I will say I found it interesting that there was that moment of clarity or like wiseness in, was it Pip who left his leaf for Aragon hopefully to find. And I do find it interesting that like there was no written part of them like leaving traces of themselves behind to be found. Aerolingus might also be appropriate in many contexts if Rohirrim is too elusive. Possibly. So they find the clues. We, of course, again, we already know this. I'm not going to spend too long like going over how we get to where Merry and Pip are. We know that Aragon is like a really brilliant ranger, and he's really, really good at tracing things. We also know that Legolas has amazing eyesight. And so they find their way into the forest. With some doubt, they go into the forest. I believe Gimli brings it up. He's like, I wish not. I wish not to go into the forest. Haven't we been warned about it? But they decide that it is the better of the routes. The hobbits were too busy eating lembas to leave a note. Isn't that so true? That was something. It was the lembas. He said, being pleased with his skill, he then sat down and quietly ate some whey bread. That at least is enough to show that he was a hobbit. Which the lembas is what led them, because for a while they can't find like 2 sets of footprints. There is a little bit of like worry and confusion, suspensefulness that is written into this. But again, we know Merry and Pip are safe. So as the reader experiencing it, it's not as dire or suspenseful as it is in the experience of who we're reading for. You almost wish you could like shake them and be like, it's okay, they're safe. You found Legolas to be sarcastic? I don't think I read it like that. In the finding of the lembas bread specifically? Unless I could definitely see it as being like calling out hobbits loving to eat for sure. I suppose sarcasm has like a twang of malice in it a lot of times. Even I say that and I consider myself to sometimes, well, I don't know if I really consider myself to be super sarcastic anymore. I think in my younger days, I used to go the way of sarcasm. Okay, yeah. So the sort of criticizing them for how foolish they were to sit and eat in the middle of, criticizing. That shows up a number of times in Tolkien, not malice, humor. Yeah, humor. Sarcasm. Yeah, humor. Absolutely does. I think there's a lot of like love between this group of people. Goodness gracious, take your heels off. I swear, I'm gonna go burn their heels. I'm gonna stop trying to. I have my headphones on, and these are really good like headphones, and I can hear their heels so vividly. It really does grind my gears. You had younger days? Of course I did. Like when Rory voted Bilbo a capital fellow after the first battle of Old Orchard? Is that from The Hobbit? Okay. Okay, something that is important is that they realize they're like, so they do piece together this as much that the hobbits had been kept alive because they were ordered to keep them alive. They imagine that the orcs do not know that the hobbits had the ring, but that they were told to keep the hobbits alive at all costs, and that whoever had ordered them to fetch the hobbits knew of the ring. I'm sure he means it in good fun. I just like how he's laughing at how ridiculous the hair of hobbits have been. Yes, I agree. I agree. I agree. I think I was being a little too hasty. Might I take a note out of Treebeard's playbook? As I was being a little too hasty with my the way I took in the word sarcastic there. Because sarcastic does not always have malice in it, and that I know. I don't know why I read it with I didn't read it with malice in my heart, but I read the word sarcastic with maybe I'm thinking snarky. I can be a bit sarcastic and snarky, but I'm old enough that I just don't care. You know? Some would say that you've earned the right, Toodles. Okay. So we've pieced it together. Again, our guys are smart. And again, I'm spending a lot of time going over this because it's like, I don't want to rush over it, but I kind of do. Because I did do a bit of highlighting and of underlining, but at the same time, I was like, okay, but I mean, please hurry up. Okay. And something that I did find interesting, again, there's these moments of character building and like showing, not telling. Hi, Kendra. The showing, not telling of the characters. And something that is really beautiful here is we get this moment with Legolas. Hold on. So Legolas is a Gen Xer. You think only Gen Xers are snarky, sarcastic? I think that transcends time and space. Okay, so I thought this was beautiful because we knew from Treebeard that the elves had awakened the trees. And while the elves and the trees weren't necessarily in bad faith with each other, we know that there seems to be some like isolation, some kind of harboring of like being forgotten or not being cared for, not being cared to in like a friendship sense in a bit between elves and trees. Even though the elves very greatly adore the earth and whatnot. So Legolas listens to the trees. I do not think the wood feels evil, whatever tales may say. He stood under the eaves of the forest, stooping forward as if he were listening and peering with wide eyes into the shadows. No, it is not evil, or what evil is in it is far away. I catch only the faintest echoes of dark places where the hearts of the trees are black. There is no malice near us, but there is watchfulness and anger. Watchfulness and anger. Well, we are known for it. Sorry, I forgot to update the stream elements. I did schedule the next book club. It is Monday next week, 5 p.m., chapters 7 and 8. Just to correct that. Okay. There's something happening inside or going to happen. Do not feel tenseness. It takes my breath. So Pip and Merry had also experienced this like stagnation, stuffy air, which says a lot about the forest, right? And we know that from Treebeard that the forest is not necessarily dead, but kind of like sleepy. The trees are very tree-ish, instead of being like awake and moving about as much as they used to. Great quote, Andrew. It is old, very old. So old that almost I feel young again. And as I have not felt since I journeyed with you children. I actually loved, there's a good little example of Legolas's snark and sarcasm. Yeah, I don't know why I was so hasty about that earlier. Yeah, calling them children. Felt very like joking with them. Not a good idea. Understood, Doodles. That's the price of sensitivity. Yeah. The stuffiness and the tree-ish. There's also this really good moment of Gimli respecting Legolas. So as we just read, it is old, very old. So old that almost I feel young again, as I have not felt since I journeyed with you children. It is old and full of memory. I could have been happy here if I had come in days of peace. I dare say you could, snorted Gimli. You are a wood elf, anyway, though elves of any kind are strange folk. Yet you comfort me. Where you go, I will go. But keep your bow ready to hand, and I will keep my axe loose in my belt. Not for use on trees, he added hastily, looking up at the tree under which they stood. I do not wish to meet that old man at unawares without an argument ready to hand. This is all. Let us go. Also to specifically note out on what we just read, he's like, I'll keep my axe loose in my belt, but not for use on the trees. Gimli has this deep respect for Legolas. He has this deep respect for the trees. And like they have this relationship, which I think even in these moments of tenseness, even in these moments of unknown, they have this lightness, this joking, this relationship that's able to like pick fun at each other in a really healthy way for the most part. Yep, Andrew. Not for use on trees, he added hastily. I do feel, and I know I've said the word haste quite a few times. Like I said, I loved Treebeard last week. Loved. I love that chapter. I do feel like we're getting hastiness. The word is being thrown in these chapters more and more. Yes, we are about to get a huge reveal. So, the moment we're all waiting for, right? So we make our way up to the hill. We're in the sun. We're like, as we're going up, Aragorn sees these very strange marks, which he does not understand. Not sure if Gimli has respect for the trees. He probably rather knows his chances when an entire woods come after him. I think he has respect for the trees, but fair point, Kelly. Okay, so we do notice there is an old man all in dirty gray rags, and he is passing from tree to tree through the forest. Aragorn looked and beheld a bent figure moving slowly. It was not far away. It looked like an old beggar man walking warily, leaning on a rough staff. His head was bowed, and he did not look towards them. In other lands they would have greeted him with kind words, but now they stood silent, each feeling a strange expectancy. Something was approaching that held a hidden power or menace. Gimli gazed with wide eyes for a while, as step by step the figure drew nearer. Then suddenly, unable to contain himself longer, he burst out, "Your bow, Legolas, bend it, get ready, it is Sauron. Do not let him speak or put a spell upon us. Shoot first." Legolas took his bow and bent it, slowly, and as if some other will resisted him. He held an arrow loosely in his hand, but did not fit it to the string. Aragorn stood silent. His face was watchful and intent. "Why are you waiting? What is the matter with you?" said Gimli, in a hissing whisper. "Legolas is right," said Aragorn quietly. "We may not shoot an old man, so at unawares and unchallenged, whatever fear or doubt be on us, watch and wait." I think Gimli definitely knows the odds are against him in the forest. I'm not arguing that. But I also think he can know two things can be true, right? He can know that the odds are against him, and also he can in that same vein, he respects that he couldn't win that fight, and therefore he does have this respect for the strength of the trees. He doesn't have, don't get it confused, I think he has the same respect for the trees as Legolas has, and no way do I think that, but I think In his own way, Gimli has a respect for the trees. I do not think his comment came solely from thinking he would lose the fight. Respect can look all sorts of different ways. They came at length to the step abrupt to the end of Treebeard's Hill. Treebeard's Hill, we're calling it Treebeard's Hill in the narration. That's wonderful. Oh, you're in an ad? Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you. We'll give it a minute. I do think the ad should be going at the same time for nearly everyone. Man. Let me... Okay, back if anyone. I care, Andrew. I care. Thank you. Okay. Gimli stared and then stood still as stone, staring while the old man sprang up the rough steps as nimbly as a goat. All weariness seemed to have left him. As he stepped up on to the shelf, there was a gleam, too brief for certainty, a quick glint of white, as if some garments, shrouded by the gray rags, had been for an instant revealed. The intake of Gimli's breath could be heard as a loud hiss in the silence. Well met, I say again, said the old man, coming towards them. When he was a few feet away, he stood stooping over his staff with his head thrust forward, peering at them from under his hood. And what may you be doing in these parts? An elf, a man, and a dwarf, all clad in elvish fashion. No doubt there is a tale worth hearing behind it all. Such things are not often seen here. Not well, said the old man. That would be, you speak as one that knows Fangorn well, said Aragon. Is that so? Not well. That would be the study of many lives, but I come here now and again. Might we know your name, and then hear what it is that you have to say to us? The morning passes, and we have an errand that will not wait. As for what I wish to say, I have said it. What may you be doing, and what tale can you tell of yourselves? As for my name... He broke off, laughing long and softly. Aragon felt a shudder run through him at the sound, a strange, cold thrill. And yet it was not fear or terror that he felt. Rather, it was like a sudden bite of a keen air, or the slap of a cold rain that wakes an uneasy sleeper. What I love in this reveal, is... we get this air of mystery. Let me spoil it. This is obviously Gandalf. Well, not obviously, but we're about to re-meet Gandalf in a sense. And I just love that it drags this on, but not in a bad way. When I say it drags this on, like Tolkien really drew out this moment to be kind of in an important way, because I do think that there is a difference. There is obviously a difference to Gandalf as we meet him now. And this all sets that up. So it really sets it up that like this is not Gandalf the Grey we're meeting anymore. And in fact, like Gandalf has had to bring back his memories and bring back his wisdom, and he knows a lot, but he also is not the same. And this kind of like suspenseful setup with little moments of keenness and little moments of like being like, I know who this is, up to the big reveal. It of course is warranted and needed to show us that Gandalf the White is not the same as Gandalf the Grey. Same in stature, same in a lot of ways, sure, yes. But also different in a lot of ways, yeah. And so our mysterious old man, as we'll continue to call him until the official reveal, My name, said the old man again. Have you not guessed it already? You have heard it before, I think. Yes, you have heard it before, but come now, what of your tale? The three companions stood silent and made no answer. There are some who would begin to doubt whether your errand is fit to tell. Happily, I know something of it. You are tracking the footsteps of two young hobbits, I believe. Yes, hobbits, don't stare as if you have never heard the strange name before. You have, and so have I. Well, they climbed up here the day before yesterday, and they met someone that they did not expect. Does that comfort you? And now you would like to know where they were taken. Well, maybe I can give you some news about that. But why are you standing? Your errand, you see, is no longer as urgent as you thought. Let us sit down and be more at ease. The old man turned away and went towards a heap of fallen stones and rock at the foot of the cliff behind. Immediately, as if a spell had been removed, the others relaxed and stirred. Gimli's hand went at once to his axe haft. Aragorn drew his sword. Legolas picked up his bow. So when the old man was walking up, Gimli had made note of, like, don't let him talk and don't let him get close to us because he might cast a spell on us. And I think right here, when the old mysterious man turns his back to the three, and they all shift and relax and stir and grab their weapons, it truly, like, as if a spell had been removed. Was it a spell that, do we think that it was a spell that Gandalf actually was casting on them to calm them down as they, like, tried to wrap their heads around their friend they thought to be dead was back standing in front of them? Or were they so confused and, like, felt like they were staring at a ghost that they themselves were stunned into stillness? The old man took no notice, but stooped and sat himself on a low flat stone. Then his great cloak drew apart, and they saw beyond doubt that he was clothed beneath in all in white, which important to remember that Saruman dresses all in white, right? Saruman the White, I believe, right? Saruman, cried Gimli, springing towards him with an axe in hand. Speak, tell us where you have hidden our friends. What have you done with them? Speak, or I will make a dint in your hat that even a wizard will find it hard to deal with. So, well, I'll continue to read this until the reveal. The old man was too quick for him. He sprang to his feet and leaped to the top of a large rock. There he stood, grown, suddenly tall, towering above them. His hood and his gray rags were flung away. His white garments shone. He lifted up his staff, and Gimli's axe leaped from his grasp and fell ringing on the ground. The swords of Aragorn, stiff in his motionless hand, blazed with a sudden fire. Legolas gave a great shout and shot an arrow high into thin air. It vanished in a flash of flame. Well met, I say to you again, Legolas, said the old man. You vote Gandalf's spell, but the alternative is also plausible. Yeah. I really could go either way with it for sure too. The sword of Aragorn, yes. They all gazed at him. His hair was white as snow in the sunshine and gleaming white with his robe. The eyes under his deep brows were bright, piercing as the rays of the sun. Power was in his hands. Between wonder, joy, and fear, they stood and found no words to say. At last, Aragorn stirred. Gandalf? He said. Beyond all hope, you returned to us in our need. What veil was over my sight? Gandalf. Gimli said nothing, but sank to his knees, shading his eyes. So what a reveal. And poor Gandalf. I mean, Gandalf obviously could protect his own, but poor Gandalf had to really sit there for a moment while the three, Gimli, Aragorn, and Legolas, wrapped their heads around what they were seeing, what they were experiencing. I've got to duck out for a bit. Hope to be back by Aragorn's fit at the door of Meduseld. I have strong opinions about that. Yes, I can't wait to hear them. The sword of Aragorn, stiff in his motionless hand, blazed with a sudden fire. When I first saw the film, I saw the flame on Aragorn's sword and forgot this was explicit in the text. Oh, yeah. You don't think they're baffled? Yeah, well, and And that's fair to say, Kelly, because also there's this line right here. Beyond all hope, you returned to us in our need. What veil was over my sight? So even Aragon is like, what veil, what veil? Your internet seems to be affected by a slow spell. Well, good speed being sent out to you. Good speed indeed. Just make sure I have some things closed. Okay. Okay, so this is also important. So we have to address one, that Gandalf is now in all white. Well, first, Gandalf says, indeed, my friends, none of you have any weapon that could hurt me. So there's that. And then Gandalf said, Gandalf has to explain why he is on all white. Indeed, I am Saruman, one might almost say, Saruman as he should have been. But come now, tell me of yourselves. I have passed through fire and deep water since we parted. I have forgotten much that I thought I knew, and learned again much that I had forgotten. I can see many things far off, but many things that are close at hand I cannot see. Tell me of yourselves. And Gandalf is being a bit dramatic here, so like a wizard. He really is. He really is leaning into the drama of it all, isn't he? So we learn that one of the eagles that we had seen in the sky was the same eagle that had originally saved Gandalf, and that none other than Galadriel had sent the eagle, Gwahir, the Wind Lord. She had sent out the eagle to go find Gandalf. And the eagle brought him back to Rivendell, where he rested and rejuvenated. And then he had to leave. He had to go back on his way to he had to go he had to go back to his own duties, right, which are similar in vein to ours, but also a little bit different, as we know that the darkness has spread, that there's wars looming what seems like everywhere. So we do tell Gandalf that Frodo is not alone. We think that Sam went with him. And Gandalf's response is, did he? And there was a gleam in his eye and a smile on his face. Did he indeed? It is news to me, yet it does not surprise me. Good, very good. You lighten my heart. You must tell me more. Now sit by me and tell me the tale of your journey. So there are things that Gandalf cannot see. And the one is that the whereabouts of the ring is something he can't see in his mind. He can't, the knowledge is not available to him on that front. We do tell him about the death of Boromir, where again, Gandalf says, you have not, which again, not saying that Gandalf has said this before, but many people call Aragon out for not telling the whole story, which of course we know that he's protecting Boromir's legacy, more or less. And Gandalf says, you have not said all that you may know or guess, Aragon, my friend. Poor Boromir, I cannot see what happened to him. It was a sore trial for such a man, a warrior and a lord of men. Galadriel told me that he was in peril, but he escaped in the end. I am glad. It was not in vain that the young hobbits came with us, if only for Boromir's sake. But it is not the only part they have to play. They were brought to Fangorn, and their coming was like the falling of small stones that starts an avalanche in the mountains. Even as we talk here, I hear the first rumblings. Saruman had best not be caught away from home when the dams burst. So Gandalf clearly knows that Merry and Pip, Gandalf knows that Merry and Pip are with Treebeard, and also knows that the trees are awakening, and I'm not entirely sure how many days passed. I can't remember, but I imagine that when we're sitting here with Gandalf, the trees have not yet left the Entmoot. I'm sure someone here knows the actual timing of it all. For I was talking aloud to myself, a habit of the old. They choose the wisest person present to speak to. And Gandalf being the wisest person, you've got to just talk to yourself. Yes. The long explanations needed by the young are wearying. He laughed, but the sound now seemed warm and kindly as a gleam of sunshine. The last song is another one of Tolkien's jokes. What last song? Oh, you deleted that. Message retracted. Okay. Okay, so let me see. Check in with what Wild put in here. Oh, that last line was another one of Tolkien's jokes at Sam's. Trying to remember what I just read. Dun, 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 dun. I don't even know. Okay. Okay, so let me read this from Wild. So here's what we learn. Oh wait, this is a good. So Wild's post in the community section, Gandalf explains that the ring had passed beyond his aid. So we're tracking a little bit back to Boromir. He helped one last time by sitting in a high place and striving with the Dark Tower. He then sits down and listens to Aragorn tell the tale of what happened between the Bridge of Khazad-dûm and the breaking of the Fellowship. When he hears of Boromir's end, he sighs that Galadriel had told him that Boromir was in peril. Strangely, Gandalf seems to think that Boromir came through without failing in the end. He also reiterates that Boromir was a warrior and a lord of men. High praises for someone who escapes from peril was death. Aragorn seems to notice these things and criticizes Gandalf for speaking in riddles. Gandalf insists that he was only speaking aloud to himself as the wisest person present. And then Wild says, I love the snark. I mean, in that section, I don't necessarily think Gandalf thinks Boromir came through without, yes, I don't think he thinks Boromir failed by any means. But that Boromir escaped his true, deepest, darkest desires in the end through death. Death was his escape. Death was his... Yeah. I kind of think, to me, I read that as like his escaping of his perils was death, which is kind of bleak and dark. I don't know. That's always complicated, isn't it? Appendix B has the dates of the Entmoot versus this 3. At this point, Gandalf the White is probably still a bit confused about things, but he isn't allowed by those who send him back to do certain things. He can't tell everything he knows. Yes, of course, Kelly, of course. The Entmoot is happening when our group meets Gandalf. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you. Okay. So Wild also very beautifully put out what we learned from Gandalf. So in the interest of time, let's let me read this too. Aragorn gets frustrated with Gandalf and insists that he tells them of his mind. Gandalf obliges and enlightens the reader on the goings-on in the meta-plot, bearing in mind that all of this is as Gandalf sees it, and not necessarily as the omniscient viewer would. So we learn that Sauron knows much of the company that set out from Rivendell, but not its purpose. He guesses they meant to take the ring to Minas Tirith and make war upon him from there. This is what he would do in their place, and it was in fact suggested at the Council of Elrond. At the council they considered it, nothing that it could be done. But they were convinced their champion would rise as a new Dark Lord, despite his good intentions, so it was dismissed. We also learn here that this works in our favor because Sauron thinks we're going to Minas Tirith. He's planning and starting war in that sense, which does mean that his focus is distracted from the ring actually making it to Mordor in the hands of Frodo with his companion Sam. And the fact that there are many appendices show us how much of an academic, truly how much of an academic Tolkien was. Yes. I find myself wanting to just like read the appendix one of these nights and or start reading it just to know what all is in there. Since I already know this story, there's really no harm, no foul in that, I suppose. Okay, so we also learn that Sauron has yet to even conceive the notion that they would destroy the ring, again, to our advantage. We learn that Sauron is unwittingly thwarted by the machinations of Saruman. So Sauron and Saruman are obviously like two big evil forces, right? And even they are not like, they're not pairing together, which is for all of our good sake, because if they did, then they would easily take over everything. But both of those men want the same thing, and they both can't have the same thing, so they can't work together. Again, in our favor. This does also tie back to last week when the orcs were fighting. We also do learn that Saruman had come to check in on the orcs because he, of course, had sent out the white-handed orcs to get the ring, get the hobbits, rather, and he came to find them. He finds them all slain, so obviously he's too late. So Saruman also had a mind to capture the ring for himself, or at least to snare some hobbits for his evil purposes. So between them, our enemies have contrived only to bring Merry and Pippin with marvelous speed, and in the nick of time to Fangorn, where otherwise they would not have come at all. So all of this is kind of happening in our favor because the nine in the Fellowship and the Council at Elrond have so many great brains put together that they chose a path that few could have foreseen. And they survived many perilous moments. And then the splitting up of the Fellowship is also in our favor, right? So Frodo going off on his own, and then Sam forcing himself to go with him. And Frodo then, of course, graciously said, okay, you know what, I'll take you. I would not like to do this alone. I'll take you, Sam. All of that really sets us up for a possibility of success. Whereas if we had continued on any other journey, it would have been at least a little bit, anywhere from a little bit bleaker to a lot bleaker. But Isengard cannot fight Mordor unless Saruman first obtains the ring, which now he will never do. And when Gandalf looks into Saruman's might, he sees doubt, and he does not know of the quarrel between his servants, the orcs of Mordor, he does not know of the quarrel between his servants and the orcs of Mordor, nor does he know of the winged messenger. So remember, the orcs had fought when the hobbits were in their presence, and so he doesn't know that Saruman's orcs and the Mordor orcs are like we're not working together, at least. And when they were together most recently. And then let's get back to what we've learned. So we learned that Sauron is making war against the West earlier than he anticipated, and he believes his hand is forced due to the progress of the ring. We also learned that the Nazgul are now on winged steeds, and that this was the felled beast that Legolas felled over Sarn Gabir. We learned that here, because Gandalf has just said, "Nor does he know of the winged messenger." "The winged messenger," cried Legolas. "I shot at him with the bow of Galadriel above Sarn Gabir, and I felled him from the sky. He filled us all with fear. What new terror is this?" "One that you cannot slay with arrows," said Gandalf. "You only slew his steed. It was a good deed, but the rider was soon horsed again, for he was a Nazgul, one of the 9, who ride now upon winged steeds. Soon their terror will overshadow the last armies of our friends, cutting off the sun. But they have not yet been allowed to cross the river, and Saruman does not know of this new shape in which the ring wraiths have been clad. His thought is ever on the ring. Was it present in the battle? Was it found? What if Theoden, Lord of the Mark, should come by it and learn of its power? That is the danger that he sees, and he has fled back to Isengard to double and treble his assault on Rohan. And all the time there is another danger close at hand, which he does not see. Busy with his fiery thoughts, he has forgotten Treebeard." At this moment, Sauron only knows the hobbits with the ring are in Rohan. Well, he thinks that's possible. Yeah, yep, you're right. Tolkien invented the term catastrophe, meaning an event nobody expected that turns everything to the... And that is what we're in. We're in a new catastrophe. I love that term. So, like I had just said, we learned that Saruman had come to meet the orcs, but has since retreated to Isengard to trouble his assault on Rohan. We learned that it was not Gandalf the 3 hunters saw the night before. Gandalf guesses it was Saruman, but he cannot be sure. That actually was surprising to me. I did think that it was Gandalf the night before. But Gandalf says, "You certainly did not see me. Therefore, I must guess that you saw Saruman. Evidently, we look so much alike that your desire to make an incurable dent in my hat must be excused. I never blamed you for your welcome of me. How could I do so? Who have so often counseled my friends to suspect even their own hands with dealing with the enemy? Bless you, Gimli, son of Gloin. Maybe you will see us both together one day and judge between us." More of the chance versus fate debate here as well. A continuing theme of Tolkien's. Yeah. And I think that there's this code within Gandalf, right? Of wizards, probably a code of wizards in which Gandalf can't just tell us everything. And that does really shine through here, I think. Because you would imagine Gandalf knows more than he's letting on, right? But also he can't just tell us. Because there is choice in the world. And even if you know your fate, there's always choice that can change how things turn out. Fate can be changed by choice. Which does it then, is it really fate? I don't know. Gandalf is not allowed to lead, only help. Yeah. So we also learned, so obviously now Gandalf is telling us more about the Ents. A thing is about to happen which has not happened since the Elder Days. The Ents are going to wake up and find that they are strong. What will they do? Asked Legolas in astonishment. I do not know, said Gandalf. I do not think they know themselves. I wonder. He fell silent, his head bowed in thought. So Aragorn says, do we go to find our friend to see Treebeard? No. No, we do not. That is not the road you must take. I have spoken words of hope, but only of hope. Hope is not victory. War is upon us and all our friends, a war in which only the use of the ring could give us surety of victory. It fills me with great sorrow and great fear, for much shall be destroyed and all may be lost. I am Gandalf, Gandalf the White, but black is mightier still. Ooh, catastrophe. EU, meaning good. Oh. Yeah. Who had just, Kelly. Yeah. I don't know why I was like looking up. Okay. He rose and gazed out eastward, shading his eyes as if he saw things far away that none of them could see. Then he shook his head. No, he said in a soft voice, it has gone beyond our reach. Of that at least let us be glad. We can no longer be tempted to use the ring. We must go down to face a peril near despair. Yet the deadly peril is removed. Like euphemism, yeah. I see it. I see it. And I do love this moment where Gandalf kind of reassures Aragorn, because remember, in our last meeting, well, actually, it might have been 2 ago, the last time we were with Aragorn, he was casting some doubt on himself, and he was feeling kind of bad, like maybe he had made the wrong choices, or maybe he had chosen the wrong path, or maybe he hadn't been the best leader. And Gandalf says, come, Aragorn, son of Arathorn, do not regret your choice in the valley of the Imin Muil, nor call it a vain pursuit. You chose amid doubts the path that seemed right. The choice was just and has been rewarded, for so we have met in time who otherwise might have met too late. But the quest of your companions is over. Your next journey is marked by your given word. You must go to Edoras and seek out Theoden in his hall, for you are needed. The light of Andúril must now be uncovered in the battle for which it has so long waited. There is war in Rohan and worse evil. It goes ill with Theoden. Then we are not to see the merry young hobbits again, said Legolas. I did not say so, said Gandalf. Who knows? Have patience. Go where you must go and hope. To Edoras I go, thither also. So we learned that we have to go back to Rohan, which we had told the Rohirrim. Yep, sure. Going with it. We had told them that we were going right when they had given us the horses. We said we would come back and fight with them, and so we make this new plan that we're going to Rohan. Okay, this is important. So we've talked a little bit about the difference of how Gandalf is presenting. He's presenting a little more, in my opinion, he's presenting a little more distanced. Not in his nature or his love, but in what he will reveal. He's speaking, it seems, in more riddles than not, and he seems slower to reveal information that he knows. But someone else who we've seen a few different times shown and written a little differently is Aragorn, and this is a great example of that. Yes, we will set out together, said Aragorn, but I do not doubt that you will come there before me if you wish. He rose and looked long at Gandalf. The others gazed at them in silence as they stood there facing one another. The gray figure of the man, Aragorn, son of Arathorn, was tall and stern as stone, his hand upon the hilt of his sword. He looked as if some king out of the mist of the sea had stepped upon the shores of lesser men. Before him stood the old figure, white, shining now as if with some light kindled within, bent, laden with years, but holding a power beyond the strength of kings. Do I not say truly, Gandalf? that you could go whithersoever you wished quicker than I. And this I also say, you are our captain and our banner. The Dark Lord has 9, but we have one mightier than they, the White Rider. He has passed through the fire and the abyss, and they shall fear him. We will go where he leads. But before we go, Gandalf does tell us what happened in Moria. He needs to have Aragorn take over, but he can't tell him or push him. Yeah. Whithersoever. What a word, right? Yes. Yeah. And that is something... It's very wise of him, right, Kelly? We see Gandalf as a wise character through and through throughout the entire books that we've read so far, chapters that we've read so far. But I think in his wisest hours, obviously Gandalf the White is meant to be wiser than Gandalf the Grey, or at least that's how I perceive it to be. And I do think he's giving room for people to grow into themselves, for those within his vicinity and within his space to lead in their own right. And that is very wise. Just say riders. So we do... I'll probably still just keep saying Rohanians, let's be real. It's stuck in my brain. It's more of like that's just kind of like, I'm not a linguistic person, so Rohanians just make sense to me. But we know what I mean, you know? That's the beauty of it. Okay, so we do learn, Gandalf tells us what had happened to him. And I'll summarize it the way he summarizes it at the beginning. Long time I fell, he said at last, slowly, as if thinking back with difficulty. Long I fell, and he fell with me. His fire was about me, I was burned. Then we plunged into the deep water, and all was dark. Cold it was as the tide of death, almost it froze my heart. So he recounts his fight with the Balrog, kind of somewhat quickly and somewhat lightly, and tells of his being saved by Gwahir, the Wind Lord, and then how the Wind Lord. This is important. The fight is important, right? But we don't really need to reread it necessarily. So Gandalf is saved by the Wind Lord, right? We knew this already. Ever am I fated to be your burden, friend at need, I said. A burden you have been, he answered, but not so now. Light as a swan's feather in my claw you are. The sun shines through you. Indeed, I do not think you need me anymore. Were I to let you fall, you would float upon the wind. Do not let me fall. I gasped, for I felt life in me again. Beat me, bear me to Lothlorien. That indeed is the command of the Lady Galadriel, who sent me to look for you. So, we learned there, we had spoken of this already, that Galadriel had sent the Winged Lord to go find Gandalf. And she gave him some messages. To Aragorn I was bidden to say this. Where now are the Dunduin, Elisar? Why do thy kinsfolk wander afar? Near is the hour when the lost should come forth, and the grey company ride from the north. But dark is the path appointed for thee, the dead watch the road that leads to the sea. To Legolas she sent this word, Legolas Greenleaf long under tree, enjoy thou hast lived, beware of the sea. If thou hearest the cry of the gull on the shore, thy heart shall then rest in the forest no more. And Gimli gets sad. He's like, oh, did I not? I didn't get anything. Gandalf's like, no, you did. To Gimli, son of Gloin, give his lady's greeting, lock-bearer. Wherever thou go, my thought goes with thee, but have care to lay thine axe to the right tree. "And happy hour you have returned to us, Gandalf," cried the dwarf, capering as he sang loudly in the strange dwarf tongue. "Come, come," he shouted, swinging his axe, "since Gandalf's head is now sacred, let us find one that is right to cleave." "That will not be far to seek," said Gandalf, rising from his seat. "Come, we have spent all the time that is allowed to a meeting of parted friends. Now there is need of haste." It's not, guys, don't worry about it. It's not a matter of how to say it. It's that it just doesn't feel natural, the Rohirrim thing. Like, it's just a matter of, like, it just doesn't, it's not the word that, if the word is not sitting in front of me, it's not the word that comes to my brain. So it's just, let's not worry about it. Let's not, if I say the Rohanians, if I say the Rohan, like, you know what I mean? We don't need to be pretentious about calling them the Rohirrims, okay? It's gonna be okay, I promise. Tolkien's not gonna come out of his grave and smite us, because if the word's not in front of me, I will do my best to try to remember the word, but it's not a matter of pronouncing it. It's a matter of the word does not sit in my brain. So when I'm trying to recall the proper name, it's not what I'm gonna call it. But we don't need to waste any more time going over how to say it or whatever. I'm just going to call them the Rohanians. If Rohirrims ever sticks in my brain, I will call them that. But let's not hold our breath for that moment. "If thou hearest the cry of the gull on the shore, thy heart shall then rest in the forest no more." Galadriel sent some dark messages. Dark are her words, said Legolas, right? But then Gandalf is like, now there is no need of haste. Well, Kelly, he's not alive, so we don't really, can we please stop being we're being a little much about it. You guys understand what I'm saying? That's all we need. Okay. It's making me feel kind of, we're focusing on one word when we're not here to talk about a word. It's making me feel a little bad in a lot of senses. So if we could kindly drop it. Okay. So again, we come back to this need of haste, right? So Gandalf again wraps himself in this old tattered cloak, which I have to question, like, why he's wearing the cloak, right? Versus like showing the white. Is it because people know Saruman to wear the white? I imagine that's part of it. And then he calls, so there's no horses, but we want, Gandalf says, I shall not walk, time presses. Then lifting up his head, he gave a long whistle. And there come the two horses that we had been gifted, right? Or not gifted, but lent. There is Hasufal, and there is my friend Arod beside him. But there is another that strides ahead, a very great horse. I have not seen his like before. Nor will you again, said Gandalf. That is Shadowfax. He is the chief of the Meras, lords of horses, and not even Theoden, king of Rohan, has ever looked on a better. Which, does he not shine like silver and run as smoothly as a swift stream? He has come for me, the horse of the White Rider. We are going to battle together, which I do question there. Thank you, Kendra. I do question, because didn't we get Shadowfax from the king of Rohan? And also, hadn't Shadowfax been with Gandalf earlier in the Fellowship of the Ring? That gave me I had questions about that, but maybe Gandalf was just speaking in riddles. As soon as Shadowfax saw Gandalf, he checked his pace and whinnied loudly. Then trotting gently forward, he stooped his proud neck and nuzzled his great nostrils against the old man's neck. So they get their horses. We decide that Gimli is going to ride with Gandalf. And we come back to I love that we call the like mysteries or things we've yet to solve a riddle in this story. Now I understand a part of last night's riddle, said Legolas as he sprang lightly upon Erod's back. Whether they fled at first in fear or not, our horses met Shadowfax, their chieftain, and greeted him with joy. Because again, all of the horses come from Rohan, right? There was some beautiful description as they move. So they're on their way to Rohan, and they're riding the horses. After a little while, he turned suddenly, and choosing a place where the banks were lower, he waded the river and then led them away due south into a flat land, treeless and wide. Shadowfax is one of the Miras, yeah. It's a, yeah. The Shadowfax, he is the chief of the Miras, lords of horses. But it says, and not even Theoden, king of Rohan, has ever looked on a better. Oh, never looked on a better horse than that. I read it, and I thought it was saying that, like, Theoden's not even ever seen Shadowfax, and I was a little confused, because I was like, wait, isn't that where we got the horse from? It is. You know, it just takes a fifth time reading it for it to sink in sometimes. Yes, Dar. Yeah, Dar, you're correct. Yes, I was in, and my confusion was not necessarily if Gandalf owned. I had read that as it's saying, because of the way that it's written, that is Shadowfax. He is the chief of the Maris, lords of horses, and not even Theoden, king of Rohan, has ever looked on a better. The way my brain interpreted that was that Theoden had never seen a horse like Shadowfax. And I was confused because I was like, Shadowfax came from Rohan. But my brain interpreted it differently than it was written. That was the confusion. But yes, because we do have the next chapter, chapter 6, where we do get a little moment between Shadowfax, Theoden, and Gandalf, don't we? Okay. The wind went like gray waves through the endless miles of grass. There was no sign of road or track, but Shadowfax did not stay or falter. So they get on the horses, they ride. It's kind of, that's in the next chapter, actually. We get this like description of them crossing many different kinds of paths and crossing a lot of land. And we also end the chapter like this. Looking out over the great plain, far away, the riders saw it for a moment. Like a red fire sinking into the grass, low upon the edge of sight, shoulders of the mountains glinted red upon either side. A smoke seemed to rise up and darken the sun's disk to the hue of blood, as if it had kindled the grass as it passed down under the rim of earth. There lies the gap of Rohan, said Gandalf. It is now almost due west of us. That way lies Isengard. I see a great smoke, said Legolas. What may that be? Battle and war, said Gandalf. Ride on. Tolkien's like, hold my beer. Gandalf let Shadowfax go after he got near Rivendell. Before the Council of Elrond, that's right. He briefly mentioned at the council. That's right. Okay. Thank you, Kendra. I was like, I knew he'd had Shadowfax. And I thought maybe that the Fellowship had seen Shadowfax, but he let him go before he got to Rivendell. Because Shadowfax couldn't go over the troll land, I believe is what it was. Something along those lines. Thank you guys for filling in the holes of the story when we go through this stuff. It's what I love about, one of the things I love about these meetings. Okay, so we just have this we only do two chapters a week now. This one's quite a lot. I didn't think it would take us that long to get through chapter 5, but you know, surprises at every corner. Surprises. Okay, so chapter 6, the King of the Golden Hall. We're coming up on Rohan, and we have two different descriptions of it. One from Legolas And the first is from Gandalf. Gandalf pointed ahead. "Look," he cried, and they lifted their tired eyes. Before them stood the mountains of the south, white-tipped and streaked with black. The grasslands rolled against the hills that clustered at their feet and flowed up into many valleys still dim and dark, untouched by the light of dawn, winding their way into the heart of the great mountains. Immediately before the travelers, the widest of these glens opened like a long gulf among the hills. Far inward they glimpsed a tumbled mountain mass with one tall peak. At the mouth of the vale there stood like a sentinel a lonely height. About its feet there flowed, as a thread of silver, the stream that issued from the dale. Upon its brow they caught, still far away, a glint in the rising sun, a glimmer of gold. "Speak, Legolas," said Gandalf. "Tell us what you see there before us." So it's almost like now we get these like Legolas binoculars. Legolas gazed ahead, shading his eyes from the level shafts of the new risen sun. "I see a white stream that comes down from the snows. Where it issues from the shadow of the vale, a green hill rises upon the east. A mighty wall and thorny fence encircle it. Within there rise the roofs of houses, and in the midst, set upon a green terrace, there stands aloft a great hall of men, and it seems to my eyes that it is hatched with gold. The light of it shines far over the land. Golden, too, are the posts of its doors. There men in bright mail stand, but all else within the court are yet asleep." Lots of Beowulf ideas in this chapter. The hall, the door wards, the old king. Expand on Beowulf ideas. "Edoras, those courts are called," said Gandalf, "and Meduseld is that golden hall. There dwells Theoden, son of Thangol, king of the Mark of Rohan." So we see our destination in front of us. And also, we're riding up, right? "Upon their western sides, the grass was white with drifted snow. Small flowers sprang there like countless stars amid the turf." "Look," said Gandalf, "how fair are the bright eyes in the grass. Evermine they are called Cymbeline in this land of men, for they blossom in all the seasons of the year and grow where dead men rest. 7 mounds upon the left and 9 upon the right. Many long lives of men it is since the golden hall was built." So there's a song that Aragorn sings, and then he translates in common speech. "Where now the horse and the rider, where is the horn and was blowing? Where is the helm and the hauberk and the bright hair flowing? Where is the hand of the harp string and the red fire glowing? Where is the spring and the harvest and the tall corn growing? They have passed like rain on the mountain, like a wind in the meadow. The days have gone down in the west behind the hills into shadow. Who shall gather the smoke of the dead wood burning, or behold the flowing years from the sea returning?" Beowulf is where the orcs come from as one of the offspring of Cain. Oh. Old English epic poem, 3,000 line poem. "Where now the horse and the rider" is the lines given to Theoden in the film. Oh. An echo from a line from another old poem, The Wanderer. Oh, that line you just said. Where have the horses gone? Where are the riders? Huh. Okay, so they ride up, the guards are there. Wonder was in their eyes, but little friendliness as they looked darkly upon Gandalf. So we had heard that Gandalf was not necessarily a welcomed entity in Rohan. We'd learned that from Eomer, I believe. And never have we seen other riders so strange, nor any horse more proud than in one of these that bear you. He is one of the Meras, unless our eyes are cheated by some spell. Say, are you not a wizard, some spy from Saruman, or phantoms of his craft? Speak now and be swift. We are no phantoms, nor do your eyes cheat you, for indeed these are your own horses that we ride. As you well know, ere you asked, I guess, but seldom does thief ride home to the stable. Here are Hasufel and Arad that Eomer the Third, Marshal of the Mark, lent to us only 2 days ago. We bring them back now, even as we promised him. Has not Eomer then returned and given warning of our coming? A troubled look came into the guard's eyes. Of Eomer I have naught to say. If what you tell me is truth, then doubtless Theoden will have heard of it. Maybe your coming was not wholly unlooked for. It is but 2 nights ago that Wormtongue came to us and said that by the will of Theoden, no stranger should pass these gates. So, Wormtongue. Many old English words and cognates here in Rohan. Nice line from Legolas. That, I guess, is the language of the Rohirrim, for it is like to this land itself, rich and rolling in part, and else hard and stern as the mountains. Yes, I loved it. I thank you for that line, Andrew. I had highlighted that as well. Because we didn't get any writing of the original song in the Rohirrim language. We only got the translation of it into common speech. But I did love Legolas's description of the Rohirrim language. I thought that was great as well. So we hear of Wormtongue, right? So one could think Wormtongue, when Eomer came back, Wormtongue put out a warning that no one should enter the gates, because Eomer had likely given word that he had given away 2 horses and who he had given them to and what their journey was, and their relation to Gandalf, probably, I imagine. And so when my thought is when Wormtongue heard all of that, he was like, no one's allowed in. However, we do get let in because Aragorn's like, will you go talk? So actually Gandalf says who he is. He says, for I am Gandalf, I have returned, and behold, I too bring back a horse. Here is Shadowfax the Great, whom no other hand can tame. And here beside me is Aragorn, son of Arathorn, the heir of kings, and it is to Mundburg that he goes. Here also are Legolas the elf and Gimli the dwarf, our comrades. Go now and say to your master that we are at his gates and would have speech with him if he will permit us to come into his hall. Thank you, Andrew. Also, yes, because when we find our way up to the gates, we're spoken to. They greet us in their language, and Aragorn responds, I do understand your speech, yet few strangers do so. And I think, was that Gandalf who said that back? Yeah, you're right. Yeah, sure. Yeah, Gandalf speaks to them. So we are let in. After some time he returned. Follow me, he said. Theoden gives you leave to enter, but any weapon that you bear, be it only a staff, you must leave on the threshold. Okay, so we're asked to give up our weapons, right? I'm gonna see, because I know Wild had to step away, but also said they had strong opinions about this section. So I want to see if they wrote anything. Okay. Yes, I will read this as Wild has written it. Like that is, Ark, you're so right. Okay. We come now to the political intrigue portion of today's reading. There is much going on, but I find myself with little to say on the subject. Gandalf is not welcome to Medusult, as he should have been. He goes back and forth with Grima for a time answering his accusations. Ultimately, no, it's before that. Okay. When they reach the doorway, we see Aragorn coming into his own and revealing a side of him that I think has been slowly creeping out. Right. When asked to leave Andúril at the gate, Aragorn's sword, Aragorn responds with disdain, saying the Lord of the Riddermark has no authority over the King of Man. He is, of course, correct in his own way. Aragorn definitely outranks Theoden, but it is useless to refuse, as Gandalf points out, and Gandalf says as much. He says, Aragorn says, "It is not my will to put aside my sword or to deliver Andúril to the hand of any other man." And Hama says, "This is the house of Theoden, not of Aragorn, even were he king of Gondor in the seat of Denethor." "This is idle talk," said Gandalf. "Needless is Theoden's demand, but it is useless to refuse. A king will have his way in his own hall, be it folly or wisdom." And Wilde goes on to say, Aragorn definitely outranks Theoden, but it is useless to refuse, as Gandalf points out. "I consider Aragorn openly declaring himself Elendil's heir at the door of Medusult to be a turning point in his character." Actually, that's a great point. We've seen a lot of layering up of Aragorn being written in a more kingly nature, holding a more kingly posture, and we don't hear him very boisterously demand respect, but he does so here, and he does so. And I wouldn't say Wilde had called it like a tantrum before they left. I could be wrong on the word that Wilde used before they stepped away from chat tonight. So they openly declaring himself as Elendil's heir at the door of Medusult to be a turning point in his character. He told the hobbits and the prancing pony that the enemy has been looking for him all his life, so he remains in secret. He did not even declare himself thusly at the Council of Elrond. I see it as a big deal that he has done so at the doors of Medusult, and I think his righteous lordship, for lack of a better term, is coming out now. I'm curious whether you and or other book club members see it the same way, though first-time readers may need to read further to really answer the question. Aragorn ultimately rests Andúril next to the door and curses anyone not of Elendil's line to death should they draw it. The men of Rohan draw back abashed. So Wilde is asking, do we think that Aragorn's display of power, stature, and title here is righteous? Is it a big deal? I think absolutely it's a big deal. I think calling out specifically that he didn't declare himself thusly at the Council of Elrond really puts it into perspective. Because if there's one place I can imagine felt more safe to hearken your title and set yourself up as this huge heir and king, it would have been somewhere safe, like Rivendell, like the Council of Elrond, perhaps. But also there's this silent, slow creeping power to Aragorn, and it's very it's incredibly apparent here that he's getting, I like the word righteous, he's getting a little more righteous in it, but also I maybe confident, maybe I wonder what inspired him to pull rank in this moment. Obviously setting aside his sword, which he used to keep on him, broken. And now is fixed, and also is in a sheath of beauty and power that Galadriel had gifted him. So he has all this power on him in this sword, but also he has this kind of steady claim to power within himself, and he doesn't call back to it a lot. He more often than not truly does feel like an equal companion with his fellowship, with the company. And if he was pulling rank all the time, I imagine he would be very insufferable. Grima should have figured people didn't like him when they gave him the nickname Wormtongue, right? Who just gets that name? Hail comers from afar, behind the scenes, originally written by Tolkien in the draft as Weseth Hail, forearm Kumine, but it was changed for them to now be using the common tongue. Oh, thank you, Andrew. Yeah, I think that's a great, definitely feel free to answer that question in your time. Yes. I love the way, if you guys don't ever read Wild's description of what we've read, you should. It's always in the community section. Or it has been thus far, and it's always phenomenal. It's always one I always love reading through it. They add in so much personality and like little moments of joking, and it's just always so well written. I do think that's an important thing to discuss is how Aragorn is holding his power differently now, and how we're seeing that in these instances. And this is just kind of like, there have been many times where he's listened to people and done as they asked, and this was not a moment when he did that. Well said, Gimli. If it has Anduril to keep it company, my axe may stay here too without shame. Yeah. Hi, Iman. Hello. Welcome in. So they all set down their weapons. Legolas was the first. He had given his bow, his golden wood, and for they come from the golden wood, and the Lady of Lothlorien gave them to me. Wonder came into the man's eyes, and he laid the weapons hastily by the wall, as if he feared to handle them. No man will touch them, I promise you. And even after that sign of respect to Legolas, Aragorn throws this, makes his sword like a really big deal, which it is to him, and it is a big deal. And it is, I think, worthy of the discussion that Wild set forth for us. Regardless, though, the only last thing is, so Gimli sets down his axe, and they ask Gandalf to get rid of his staff, and he's like, I am old. If I may not lean on my stick as I go, then I will sit out here until it pleases Theoden to hobble out himself to speak with me. Aragorn laughed. Every man has something too dear to trust to another, but would you part an old man from his support? Come, will you not let us enter? The staff is in the hand of a wizard. Maybe more than a prop for age, said Hama. He looked hard at the ash staff on which Gandalf leaned. Yet in doubt, a man of worth will trust to his own wisdom. I believe you are friends and folk worthy of honor, who have no evil purpose. You may go in. And obviously Hama read the situation correctly, and that we are friends and we are folk worthy of honor, and we did have no evil purpose. It does get Hama in trouble, though, that he let us in. Doesn't it? Here's one of I love to take the moments to read some of the more descriptive writings of Tolkien. And I think this descriptive writing as we enter the hall is beautiful. The guards now lifted the heavy bars of the door and swung them slowly inwards, grumbling on their great hinges. The travelers entered. Inside it seemed dark and warm after the clear air upon the hill. The hall was long and wide and filled with shadows, and half-lights, mighty pillars, upheld its lofty roof. But here and there bright sunbeams fell in glimmering shafts from the eastern windows, high under the deep eaves. Through the louver in the roof, above the thin wisp of issuing smoke, the sky showed pale and blue as their eyes changed. The travelers perceived that the floor was paved with stones of many hues, branching runes and strange devices intertwined beneath their feet. They saw now that the pillars were richly carved, gleaming dully with gold and half-seen colors. Many woven cloths were hung upon the walls, and over their wide spaces marched figures of ancient legend, some dim with years, some darkling in the shade, but upon one form the sunlight fell. A young man upon a white horse. He was blowing a great horn, and his yellow hair was flying in the wind. The horse's head was lifted, and its nostrils were wide and red as it neighed. Smelling battle afar, foaming water green and white, rushed and curled about its knees. Behold, Errol the Young, said Aragon. Thus he rode out of the north to the battle of the field of Celebrant. It is true that Andrew can kill anybody that put hands on. Oh, is that, well, that surely does make things a little more dramatic, doesn't it, Ark? I don't know. Perhaps others in chat do, though. I think Aragon was pushed to reveal himself because he had to relinquish the legendary sword, but he was slowly growing into the role after decades of being just a ranger. Dar. I agree. I think that's a great point. I do think that Aragon is slowly in some moments and quickly in others shedding this old way of living where he had to be more hidden. He was kind of living this like secret existence. And he wasn't well respected. Rangers are not very well respected amongst Middle-earth. They're kind of looked down upon and seen as kind of shadowy figures in the night that are not to be trusted. And so I think that that's fair to say he's shedding the role of just being a ranger. And he's stepping into this role of holding his own and holding his title as he deserves it. Yeah. And two, he's proving that he does deserve the title that he was born into. You think the film created the hall very close to that description? I agree, Andrew. Now, this is interesting. And obviously we haven't... This is a chapter that I think came to light in the movie much better than it comes to light in the book. Because in the book, we have this reveal that, what's his name? Tonguewort? No. What do they call him? What do they call that little bitch? Whatever his name is, Worm Tongue. In the movie, we get to go to Rohan before anyone from the Fellowship, anyone from the company makes it to Rohan, right? And obviously, in the book, we rely on the reveal, and we rely on the moments of Tolkien writing in like little hints like don't trust this guy, obviously the name, why would you trust someone named Wormtongue, and then there's just like creepy air about him, sure, but then we get this reveal that he's working for Saruman, which in the movie the creepiness of Wormtongue is like very evident from the beginning. But that's the difference in movies and books, you know? Okay, so we meet Theoden. And again, here's a description of Theoden. At the far end of the house beyond the earth, the facing north towards the door, was a day with 3 steps. And in the middle of the day was a great gilded chair. Upon it sat a man so bent with age that he seemed almost a dwarf, but his white hair was long and thick and fell in great braids from beneath a thin golden circlet set upon his brow. In the center upon his forehead shone a single white diamond. His beard was laid like snow upon his knees, but his eyes still burned with a bright light, glinting as he gazed at the strangers. Behind his chair stood a woman clad in white. At his feet upon the steps sat a wizened figure of a man with a pale, wise face and heavy-lidded eyes. I greet you, he said, and maybe you look for welcome, but truth to tell, your welcome is doubtful here, Master Gandalf. You have ever been a herald of woe. Troubles followed you like crows, and ever the often the worse. I will not deceive you. When I heard that Shadowfax had come back riderless, I rejoiced at the return of the horse, but still more at the lack of the rider. And when Éomer brought the tidings that you had gone at last to your long home, I did not mourn. But news from afar is seldom soothed. Here you come again, and with you comes evil, worse than before, as might be expected. Why should I welcome you, Gandalf Stormcrow? Tell me that. Slowly he sat down again in his chair. You speak justly, Lord. It is not yet 5 days since the bitter tidings came that Theodred, your son, was slain upon the west marches, your right hand second marshal of the Mark. In Éomer there is little trust. Few men would be left to guard your walls. If he had been allowed to rule, and even now we learn from Gondor that the Dark Lord is stirring in the east. Such is the hour in which this wanderer chooses to return. Why indeed should we welcome you, Master Stormcrow? Last spell I name you. Ill news, and ill news is an ill guess, they say. He laughed grimly as he lifted his heavy lids for a moment and gazed on the strangers with dark eyes. So that was from Wormtongue. Which is just such an eerie kind of... Gandalf says it really well. The courtesy of your hall is somewhat lessened of late, Theoden, son of Thengel. You are held wise, my friend Wormtongue, and are doubtless a great supporter to your master, answered Gandalf in a soft voice. And I highlighted and then underlined in a soft voice because I think Gandalf uses different voices to evoke different experiences for those hearing him. Almost a form of manipulation, some could say, but, you know, he's using his tools to his advantage. Some of the stuff from the movie that we see before the point came from the appendices, some from later reports in the story itself. Phenomenal call out, Kendra. And Gandalf says, yet in two ways may a man come with evil tidings. He may be a worker of evil, or he may be such as leaves well alone, and comes only to bring aid in time of need. That is so, said Wormtongue, but there is a third kind, pickers of bones, meddlers in other men's sorrows, carrion fowl that grow fat on war. What aid have you ever brought, Stormcrow? And what aid do you bring now? It was aid from us that you sought last time that you were here. Then my lord bade you choose any horse that you would and be gone. And to the wonder of all, you took Shadowfax in your insolence. My lord was sorely grieved. Yet to some it seemed that to speed you from the land of the price was not too great. I guess that it is likely to turn out the same once more. You will seek aid rather than render it. Do you bring men? Do you bring horses, swords, spears? That I would call aid. That is our present need. But who are these that follow at your tail? 3 ragged wanderers in grey, and you yourself the most beggar-like of the 4. The courtesy of your hall is somewhat lessened of late, Theoden, son of Thengel. Has not the messenger from your gate reported the names of my companions? Seldom has any lord of Rohan received 3 such guests. Weapons they have laid at your doors that are worth many a mortal man, even the mightiest. Grey is their raiment, for the elves clad them, and thus they have passed through the shadows of great perils to your hall. Then it is true, said Éomer. Reported that you are in league with the sorceress of the Golden Wood, said Wormtongue. It is not to be wondered at. Webs of deceit were ever worn in Dwimmerdene. Gimli strode a pace forward, but suddenly felt the hand of Gandalf clutch him by the shoulder, and he halted, standing stiff as stone. And Gandalf says, "In Dwimmerdene and Lorien seldom have walked the feet of men. Few mortal eyes have seen the light that lies there ever long and bright. Galadriel, Galadriel. Clear is the water of your well, white is the star in your white hand, unmarred, unstained is leaf and land, and Dwimmerdene and Lorien more fair than thoughts of mortal men." Thus Gandalf softly sang, and then suddenly he changed. Casting the tattered cloak aside, he stood up and leaned no longer on his staff, and he spoke in a clear, cold voice. "The wise speak only of what they know. Grima, son of Galamud, a witless worm have you become. Therefore be silent and keep your forked tongue behind your teeth. I have not passed through fire and death to bandy crooked words with a serving man till the lightning falls." He raised his staff. There was a roll of thunder. The sunlight was blotted out from the eastern windows. The whole hall became suddenly dark at night. The fire faded to sullen embers. Only Gandalf could be seen, standing white and tall before the blackened earth. In the gloom, they heard the hiss of Wormtongue's voice. "Did I not counsel you, Lord, to forbid his staff?" So, we did our best to have a calm meeting. But when it was clear that Wormtongue was too far in Theoden's ear, we had to make a choice. And we make this big moment, this big huzzah, and we kind of pull rank, more or less. But we also start to shake whatever this spell is over Theoden. But before we start to shake this spell of Theoden. Before we move into the conversation with Theoden, we have this moment between Éowyn and Aragorn. The woman turned and went silently into the house. As she passed the door, she turned and looked back. Grave and thoughtful was her glance as she looked on the king with cool pity in her eyes. Very fair was her face, and her long hair was like a river of gold. Slender and tall she was in her white robe, girt with silver, but strong she seemed and stern as steel. A daughter of kings. Thus Aragorn, for the first time in the full light of day, beheld Éowyn, Lady of Rohan, and thought her fair and cold, like a morning of pale spring that has not yet come to womanhood, and she now was suddenly aware of him. Tall heir of kings, wise with many winters, grey-cloaked, hiding a power that yet she felt. For a moment still as stone she stood, then turning swiftly, she was gone. The line was written before Arwen was thought of. Arwen doesn't appear in the Lord of the Rings text for us for a long, long time yet. And, I wonder... Oh... So, before Arwen and Aragorn were written as lovers, or even Arwen was written about at all, Tolkien considered love between Éowyn and Aragorn. Interesting. Tolkien's story outline says Aragorn weds Éowyn, and he becomes king and he becomes king of Gondor. Whoa, that would have been a very different. That wouldn't have really worked, huh? He's meant to be a different king. Cut out the love story of Aragorn and Éowyn. Aragorn is too old and lordly and grim. That's the reason why he cut it out. Fascinating. I feel that he would hate the casting of Aragorn then, or the portrayal of Aragorn in the movies, perhaps, because Aragorn in the movies is phenomenal. So we do get... Sorry, I'm having troubles with my ear. There's like a hair in my ear. I need to get it out. It's like on my eardrum. It's causing me much pain, friends. But we're all good. We're all good. Okay, so we're able to shake the darkness off of Theoden, right? And then we have this kind of like come to reality moment with him. Yes. So we get, so Éomer had been kind of being held captive at this moment. So he's released. He comes up to meet us. We had brought Theoden outside and we're like, it's not so dark here anymore. Do you see? It's not actually as you've been told. No, said Gandalf, nor does age lie so heavily on your shoulders as some would have you think. Cast aside your prop. From the king's hand the black staff fell clattering on the stones. He drew himself up slowly as a man that is stiff from long bending over some dull toil. Now tall and straight he stood, and his eyes were blue as he looked into the opening sky. Pay attention to Tolkien's description of Éowyn. He's laying the foundations for a later scene. Okay. We will do. Thank you for calling that out. Okay. So we shake this darkness, we shake this effect of Wormtongue off of Theoden, and then we have to have this moment. So I'm just making sure I don't miss anything. There is no time to tell you all that you should hear. Yet if my hope is not cheated, a time will come ere long when I can speak more fully. Behold, you are come into peril greater even than the wit of Wormtongue could weave into your dreams. But see, you dream no longer, you live. Gondor and Rohan do not stand alone. The enemy is strong beyond our reckoning yet. We have a hope at which he has not guessed. The others now turn their eyes eastward. Over the sundering leagues of land, far away, they gazed to the edge of sight, and hope and fear bore their thoughts still on beyond dark mountains to the land of shadow, where now was the ring-bearer. How then, indeed, was the thread upon which doom still hung? It seemed to Legolas, as he strained his far-seeing eyes, that he caught a glint of white. Far away, perchance, the sun twinkled on a pinnacle of the Tower of Guard. Bye, Kendra. Have a good dinner. And further still endlessly, remote and yet a present threat, there was a tiny tongue of flame. I know, Andrew, I love when I look up and I'm like, oh, we had the same thoughts. So we get this sword. Éomer comes up with the sword. We'd found it in Grima. Wormtongue had hidden it in a chest. Oh, yes. Okay. Hold on. Okay, yes. There is a big moment. Éomer says, "It is a joy to us to see you return into your own. Never again shall it be said, Gandalf, that you come only with grief." So everyone... The people don't take it lightly that Theoden now seems more like the Theoden they know. Because I imagine, and it's kind of written this way, that the darkness that was over Theoden and this hold that Wormtongue had on him crept in over time and time and time and time and time. And so it wasn't like an immediate change. Wormtongue waited until he needed to really like control him as much as possible to like dig in as deep as he did. So it's a relief now to see that Theoden is healthy. Theoden is strong. Theoden can stand tall, and he's not. Well, I don't know that they ever thought that he was, and I don't ever think he was evil or anything, but they probably understand him more now. So yes, we find out that the blade was found in the chest of Wormtongue, and we invite Wormtongue to come to war with us. So we find out, is this? No. Okay. So Wormtongue's like, no, I'll stay back. Theoden's like, I'm riding. I'm going to war. I'm riding. I'm going to be there in the fight. Wormtongue, you're going to come with. I bid you come with me and prove your faith. Wormtongue looked from face to face, and his eyes was the haunted look of a beast seeking some gap in the ring of his enemies. He licked his lips with a long, pale tongue. Such a resolve might be expected from a lord of the house of Earl, old though he be. If I cannot undo their work, hear me at least in this, Lord. One who knows your mind and honors your command should be left and adore us. Appoint a faithful steward. Let your counselor Grima keep all things till you return, and I pray that we may see it, though no wise man will deem it hopeful. Éomer laughed. And if the plea does not excuse you from war, most noble Wormtongue, what office of less honor would you accept? To carry a sack of meal up into the mountains, if any man would trust you with it? Nay, Éomer, you do not fully understand the mind of Master Wormtongue. He is bold and cunning. Even now he plays a game with peril and wins a throw. Honor my precious time he has wasted already. Down, snake, he said suddenly in a terrible voice. Down on your belly. How long is it since Saruman brought you? What was the promised price? So this is when everything turns. When all the men were dead, you were to pick your share of the treasure and take the woman you desire. Too long have you watched her under your eyelids and haunted her steps. Éomer grasped his sword. That I knew already. For that reason, I would have slain him before, forgetting the law of the hall. But there are other reasons. He stepped forward, but Gandalf stayed him with his hand. Éowyn is safe now, but you, Wormtongue, you have done what you could for your true master. Some reward you have earned, at least. Yet Saruman is apt to overlook his bargains. I should advise you to go quickly and remind him, lest he forget your faithful service. You lie, said Wormtongue. That word comes too often easy from your lips. I do not lie. See, Theoden here is a snake. With safety you cannot take it with you, nor can you leave it behind. To slay it would be just, but it was not always as it is now. Once it was a man, and did you service in its fashion. Give him a horse and let him go at once. Wherever he chooses, by his choice, you shall judge him. So Gandalf is saying, okay, give this man a horse, and if he comes with us, then he's on our side, and if he leaves, then he's still working for Saruman, and he's not to be trusted. Let us see in battle whether you are true. His eyes glittered. Such malice was in them that men stepped back from him. He bared his teeth, and then with a hissing breath, he spat before the king's feet, and darting to one side, he fled down the stairs. So he makes his choice in the most dramatic way possible. And Theoden's like, okay, now we're going to eat at 12:02. We're leaving for war. This is where So Wormtongue had forbid Éomer from pursuing the raiding orcs, right? And if Éomer had not defied Wormtongue's voice, speaking with your mouth, those orcs would have reached Isengard by now, bearing a great prize. Not indeed that prize which Saruman desires above all else, but at least 2 members of my company, sharers of a secret hope of which even to you, Lord, I cannot yet speak of openly. Dare you think of what they might now be suffering, or what Saruman might now have learned to our destruction? I owe much to Éomer, said Theoden. Faithful heart may have froward tongue. again, just some cute little riddles between our friends. There's so, I mean, we're at the end. I'm just trying to see if there's any last little things. Of course, we have the official giving of Shadowfax to Gandalf. Whether I came in time or not is yet to be seen, but as for your gift, Lord, I will choose one that will fit my needs. Swift and sure, give me Shadowfax. He was only lent before, if loan we may call it, but now I shall ride him into great hazard, setting silver against black. I would not risk anything that is not my own, and already there is a bond of love between us. Oh, that's actually really, I didn't realize he said, I would not risk anything that is not my own. You choose well, and I will give him now gladly. Yet it is a great gift. There is none like Shadowfax. In him one of the mighty steeds of old has returned. None such shall return again. And to you, my other guest, I will offer such things as may be found in my armory. So everyone else gets like a little bit of armor or whatever they need, shields, etc. And we start to prepare. Oh, okay. So before we leave, I thought this was further in. We do have to decide who will kind of hold down the fort. So the anyone who can ride, the men that are strong enough will ride off to war, and the old, the women, and the children will head towards the mountains. Since Theoden's son was recently slain, he names Éomer, his sister's son, to be his heir. If neither of us return, then choose a new lord as you will. But they need someone essentially to rule the stead as they're away. And the guards say they want the house of Earl. But Éomer I cannot spare, nor would he stay. I said not Éomer, answered Hama, and he is not the last. There is Éowyn, daughter of Éomund, his sister. She is fearless and high-hearted. All love her. Let her be as lord to the Eorlingas while we are gone. It shall be so, said Theoden. Let the heralds announce to the folk that the Lady Éowyn will lead them. Dark is the hour, yet maybe we shall return to the Golden Hall, but in Dunarrow the people may long defend themselves, and if the battle go ill, thither will come all who escape. Speak not so, she answered. A year shall I endure for every day that passes until you return. But as she spoke, her eyes went to Aragorn, who stood nearby. Then that is spicy. That is some tension with 3 X's in it, that's for sure. Or maybe not 3. I'm just trying to make a point. We're getting on the road. Gimli's gonna ride with Éomer. And that is a sign of friendship, because as we remember, their first meeting was not as kindly because Éomer had cast some words against Galadriel, and we know that Galadriel is very high in Gimli's book. So he will do anything to defend her honor. And oh, here we go. So we end like this. Gandalf whistled and called aloud the horse's name, and far away he tossed his head and neighed, and turning sped towards the host like an arrow. Were the breath of the west wind to take a body visible, even so would it appear, said Éomer, as the great horse ran up until he stood before the wizard. The gifts seem already to be given, said Theoden, but hearken all. Hear now I name my guest, Gandalf Greyham, wisest of counselors, most welcome of wanderers, a lord of the Mark, a chieftain of the Eorlingas. While our kin shall last, and I give to him Shadowfax, prince of horses. I thank you, Theoden king, said Gandalf. Then suddenly he threw back his grey cloak, and cast aside his hat, and leapt to horseback. He wore no helm nor mail. His snowy hair flew free in the wind. His white robes shone dazzling in the sun. Behold the White Rider, cried Aragorn, and all took up the words. Our king and the White Rider, they shouted, forth Eorlingas. The trumpet sounded, the horses reared and neighed, spear clashed on shield. Then the king raised his hand, and with a rush like the sudden onset of great wind, the last host of Rohan rode thundering into the west. Far over the plain, Eowyn saw the glitter of their spears as she stood still, alone, before the doors of the silent house. Gimli, but if ever you chance to see the Lady Galadriel with your eyes, then you shall acknowledge her the fairest ladies, or a friendship will end. Yes. Gimli will defend Galadriel's honor to the end. To the end. So that's where we end. We end with where the Rohirrims are on their way to war. They're leaning in. We don't have word on. Last we knew, the Ents and Merry and Pip were on their way also to were on their way to Isengard. And we haven't seen or heard from Frodo and Sam, otherwise known as Fram, in quite some time. But we pick back up next week with our 2 chapters will be chapter 7 and chapter 8, Helm's Deep and the Road to Isengard. So I imagine these 2 chapters will be incredibly action-packed. So that meeting is next Monday, 5 p.m. Central Time. And I'm very, very excited to have 2 new chapters that I love. And I think we're nearly halfway. I mean, we're getting near to be halfway done with the book. Let me see. What chapter does this book end on? Yeah, so for book 3, we have 11 chapters total. So I think we just have 2. Is that possible? So we'll do 7 and 8 next week. Yeah. So we have 2 more meetings for book 3 within 2 towers. So we will finish this before US Thanksgiving. Oh, that's perfect. That's perfect. Because I'm thinking we'll take, well, I don't know. We'll see. We'll pull it out. So on the 25th of November in Discord, we will be having a Lord of the Rings movie marathon. If you guys, let me grab that link. We'll be watching all 3 extended editions starting at noon Central on that day, the 25th. And I'll post, if you're just interested in joining the Discord for the movie marathon, that's totally fine. I'll post about it the day, like that week too, so you can join for that. That is the weekend of Thanksgiving. So it always depends on if you have family things to do or not. But next week we'll meet at 5 p.m. to do chapter 7 and 8. And then the next week we'll finish the book with the last 3 chapters of book 3 within 2 towers. And then we'll move on to book 4. We may take a week off for the holidays, but we'll see. We'll see if we need to, how busy things are around that time. But otherwise, that's it for today. The live stream for next week is already scheduled, so let me drop that down as well. And then let me, not that. And then this link has all the different places you can follow me if you aren't already. Thank you for joining me this Monday evening for chapters 5 and 6 of Lord of the Rings. I'll see you next week for chapters 7 and 8, and I'll see you in the comments for anyone watching this after the live. Thank you for joining. And for the live, thank you for joining after the live, and thank you for being here. I'll see you soon.